I did.
It's 7 o'clock, folks, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Wolfeboro Planning Board, June 6, 2017 meeting. My name is Kathy Barnard. I'm the chairman of the Planning Board, and let me introduce the other members. Down to my extreme right at the end of the table, Brad Harriman, who is the representative from the Board of Selectmen. Next to Brad, Paul O'Brien, and John Thurston, Von Dugan, and to my left, Peter Goodwin, Mike Hodder, and Matt Sullivan, who is the Director of Planning and Development for the town. The first two items are scheduled appointments and public hearings, so let me quickly go over the procedure. The first thing that happens is the applicant will make a presentation, go over, tell us about what the application is and how it meets the zoning ordinance requirements. Matt Sullivan will then talk about any other issues that the planning board needs to consider. Once that takes place, sometimes waivers are requested, and so I would ask the applicant to speak to why we should grant a particular waiver. And after that takes place, the planning board would determine if we can grant the waiver or not. The motion would be made and a vote taken. If the waiver is granted, then we need to determine if the application is complete, and if it is, the application will be accepted as complete, and then any member of the public that wants to comment on the application, that would be the time that that could occur. So once we've taken all of the public comments, all questions have been answered, we'll generally close the public hearing, and then the planning board will make a decision. So let me read the first application into the record. First of all, there was to be another application this evening, and that was for the Lone Wolf Brewery. However, that has been continued until our next meeting, which is June 20th, and it will be the first item on the agenda. Is that correct? Okay. So the first item this evening, Depot Square Condominium Association. This is located at 61 Central Avenue, tax map 217-47, case 2017-12, and this is the revoking of a subdivision approval. So the applicant, if you come on up, give us your name and then tell us about the application.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the Planning Board. My name is John Sims, and I live at Depot Square, and along with me are all of the other inhabitants of Depot Square, in sum total. We chose not to bring the dog, but that would have been, I think, too much. But we're all here. Depot Square is now owned by the occupants of the condominiums on the spot. And we took stock and we said that this condominium is for 10 units, and there is not planning permission to build, but it's approved to be a condominium of an additional building similar to the existing one. I assume you all are familiar with the existing building there. Large, white, three-story building. There is approval to put another one of those, same size, up against Bridgeforce Path, and another one at the end of that property where Bradley parks his equipment, and that's a three-story, two-unit building. And this was the old approval, and I don't know whether do they have the previous one?
They do have a copy of that. They should have a copy, and if you don't, I have other copies.
The existing unit here and the two planned units. And with a 5-foot setback the planned unit here would have been right against the property line, and you step out of the front door right onto Forest Park. And to have a 3-story block right there seemed to be an affront to the goal of the town to have that as an attractive scenic place, and to the people who live behind it. So we said, let's get rid of the additional units. And we thought it was just a matter of canceling some permits for those 6 additional units. But it turns out that it was a lot more complex. And so we are now going through the condominium revocation to replace a 10-unit condominium with a 4-unit condominium. And that property out there that is now striped and parking and used by the businesses in town to take their cars off the street in the summer will remain as common land for the condominium. So that, in simple, is the request, that we modify the condominium from 10 units to 4 units. Is that sufficient of a description?
Is everybody satisfied with that description?
As part of the process, we had to have a new site plan drawn up, and that has been done. And any questions?
Okay, do you folks have any questions? Then we'll go to Matt right now with Mr. Sims. Okay, all right, thanks. We'll turn it over to Matt. Thank you.
Just a few items I want to note, most of which I believe are covered in my planner review. I had some concerns after reviewing the application about authorization from the condo association for Mr. Sims to represent them. It's my understanding that Mr. Sims has documentation with him tonight to satisfy that request. I did also want to note that prior to this meeting, there have been 2 applications posted for public notice, a site plan revocation and a subdivision revocation, and we felt after further review that there were actually no site plan review or site plan approvals in place, so Mr. Sims withdrew that application, and now we have only the subdivision revocation in front of us. On that note, I think that it's important to point out that these condominiums were originally approved as part of the nonprofit elderly housing provision of the zoning ordinance, and that supplied a density bonus to these units. It was originally approved, again, as a 12-unit condominium development and then reduced to 10. And the proposed revocation actually brings the site more in accordance with the required density within the C1 CBD district without that density bonus supplied by the overlay district for elderly housing. So by reducing the unit count, we actually get a more conforming site. I also want to point out the statutory authority for the revocation of this recorded approval. Under 676-4A, there are 5 ways by which the planning board can revoke. The board would be using item A there that you'll see in the planner review, and that's at the request of or by agreement with the applicant or the applicant's successor in interest. So we've satisfied that. Similarly, under 676-4A, there's a requirement for a declaration of revocation, and any notice of decision by this board will serve as adequate notice of revocation under the statute, just as a note for you all. Okay. There were some materials submitted by Mr. Sims relative to a catch basin that has been installed as a part of road improvements, and Mr. Sims had requested the planning board release him from that. Because the construction has actually occurred, the only way for the planning board to release that would be for the catch basin to not be shown on the plan. That's not appropriate because the catch basin, in fact, exists. As a result, the Board of Selectmen will actually need to release, or their designee will need to release the condominium association for responsibility for that condition of approval from the mid-2000s. I know we're getting into the weeds a bit here, but that was part of the application.
That was a condition of approval?
Yes. Yep. And again, the planning board doesn't have the authority at this time to waive that or release them from that. Aside from that, I think this is a relatively straightforward application with the authorization in hand. I have no further comments at this time, but I certainly would entertain any questions.
You had mentioned that there was a waiver request. Is that the waiver for TRC?
That waiver request is for the application following this. I hope I didn't note that in the...
Oh, okay, so there's no waiver request.
Correct, no waiver request
Yep.
for this.
Okay.
Do you have any comments regarding the notice requirements of statute 6764A2?
The public notice requirements were satisfied.
You have been?
Yes.
Okay.
Questions, comments?
I personally feel a lot more comfortable now that this is going to stay at 4 units because the hardship, I'd say almost, of having to provide 60% of the units reserved for very low and low-income households is no longer going to be required because it meets the density requirement in the zone now, whereas those other units would have had to all have been practically compliant with the HUD requirements. So there you go. That's good.
Okay, Matt, a question along the same lines. This was approved as elderly housing, so even though the nonprofit provision may disappear, would the elderly requirement still be part of the approval? Seems like it should be.
The way the ordinance is written, though, those two items they're part of the same overlay, and they aren't really treated independently. So I think any future approval would either be both or none of the above. I think by doing this revocation, though, I'm not sure that the board deals with the use question that you're asking. Whether or not
Okay.
we are whether they are abandoning that use under the zoning ordinance as a result of requesting a revocation. Frankly, I can't answer that question at this time, but I don't think that question has an impact on the revocation itself.
Because we're revoking the subdivision
Correct.
approval?
It seems like it's two separate issues to me,
Yeah,
too, Madam
I
Chairman.
don't think it's jurisdictionally part of this revocation in front of us right now, but it is a question I should probably get the answer to.
Okay. And you mentioned the encroachments, and we don't need to concern ourselves with that issue.
No, similarly, I'll cover it very quickly. There are some potential encroachment issues on the as-built plan provided from 2017. However, those two should be addressed after the fact directly with the applicant and are not relevant to this application in front of the board. You're a potential zoning violation that would be remedied through another avenue, and that would be a departmental enforcement issue.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so no waiver request, but it's been determined that the application is complete. Would somebody be willing to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. It's been determined by the planning board that this application is complete, so I could open the public hearing. Would any member of the public like to comment on this application? If you would like to, now is the time to do that. You don't have to. Okay. All right. Any other issues, planning board members?
Good
Okay. Do you have some conditions that?
Sure, just a few conditions here. The following plans, this is condition number 1. The following plans as amended to the date of this approval are incorporated into the approval. Amended site plan for Depot Square condominium. This is dated May 9th, 2017. 2, the applicant shall be responsible for payment of all recording fees. 3, all other site plan conditions, including those of prior approvals, are hereby incorporated. 4, addition of planning board signature block and an LLS stamp to the final plan. And 5, all components of the application package and any requirements imposed by other agencies as part of this approval, unless otherwise clarified in some manner, are superseded in full or in part. Most recent documentation and this notice herein shall be generally determining. That's it.
Okay.
Do 5.
Thank you. Anyone want to add anything else? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing, and it seems to me that this application is actually more in conformance with the zoning ordinance. think in reviewing the zoning ordinance, it seems as if four units was certainly closer to being conforming for housing, so, and you have indicated that we do not have to come up with reasons for the revocation.
It's qualified under that 676-4A. It's, the applicant has requested it, the board is essentially meeting them in agreement to revoke.
Okay, all right. Anything else, folks? Someone want to make a motion regarding this application?
Move to approve the application case number 2017-12, tax map 217-047.
Okay, thank you.
With
Motion's
conditions of-
been made, and was that a second? Oh, excuse
I
me.
think you should make it clear in the motion that you're revoking the units 5 through 10 of the approved plan.
I'll amend that motion to the revocation of 6 of 10 units, units 5 through 10 of subdivision, approval from the 2005 Depot Square condominium plan amendment.
Okay, thank you. And Mike, you second?
Conditions?
Yes, with conditions. With conditions.
1 through 5.
Set forth 1 through 5 by the town planner.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you very much, folks. On to the next, right?
Bring the dog.
Is it a done deal now? Can we go down to the tax assessor and tell them that,
John, why don't we follow up tomorrow if possible?
okay,
Is that okay?
yeah. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
You will.
Thank you. The next application, Laboca LLC in Twillingate Trust of 2010 at 50 North Main Street, tax map 217-115, case 2017-17. This is a site plan review for a walk-in cooler. Hi.
Hi. Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Elizabeth Rice. My husband and I own Laboca LLC, and we are currently operating our bakery at the location 50 North Main Street and plan to open our restaurant at the end of this month. On March 17th of this year, we bought the assets of the Wolf Den LLC, which was owned by the late Barbara S. Naramore, and we began leasing the space from the Twillingate Trust, Dick and Kathy Eaton. Currently, the space that we are leasing from the Eatons has an 8x8 walk-in cooler that is existing behind the building and was installed approximately 2 years ago by the Wolf Den restaurant. Our application for the site plan review is essentially to establish the proper documentation and to properly permit this walk-in, which wasn't done so when it was initially installed. We have not used the walk-in. It has been locked since we began leasing the premises until we can be here today to ask that we may please use it. Without this cooler, we are really unable to operate our business. The interior space is insufficient for the required refrigeration that a restaurant needs to operate. We are currently at a maximum capacity that the indoor refrigeration can hold and need to move 36 pounds of butter every time we need to reach something in the back of our indoor cooler. So I'm here today to attempt to do what should have been done, and hopefully by following these rules, you can allow us to use what we have there and create a great place for people to come in town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions of Liz at this point? Oh, okay, Matt.
So obviously, this site plan application is relatively minor in nature, but because it involves exterior modifications, it's required to go through the full site plan review process. I do want to make one note. If you are looking at your plan, you'll see the 8x8 cooler shown to the rear of the restaurant area. There's also a modification performed to the front of the restaurant that you'll see. It's a deck expansion, and that was actually, it's not technically part of this application. It received a prior permit in 2015. It was constructed. It was not required to go through site plan review, and as a result, it's been incorporated into this review of the planning board. So this application is...
Could you play that back again? I didn't understand what you just said.
So the deck expansion that's shown on the plan was permitted by the building department in 2015. So it was constructed, obviously. However, that was not required to go through site plan review for oversight, or I'm not really sure what the particular reason was. However, when it came to permitting the 8x8 walk-in cooler to the rear of the property, I felt it was appropriate to include that deck expansion on sort of this as-built plan that was going to be given to the planning board. So while this application isn't specifically for that, it's shown as a change on the plan.
Okay, so we basically could amend.
Right, you'd be creating a plan that's amended to show all the permitted projects and the 8x8 cooler as shown in the application.
Okay.
There is a waiver for this application, and that's for section 173.13 of the site plan review regulations. That is for review by the technical review committee because of this project's minor scope and the timeline involved. The applicant requested a waiver, and the board will need to examine that before determining completeness. And aside from that, I have no real other comments. Obviously, no construction observation agreement necessary here. Design review requirements don't really apply. It's compliant with the zoning district here. There's zero setback, and there's vegetative screening between the adjacent residence and the proposed cooler. This project will be subject to a building permit, obviously, so that will be a subsequent process, and all conditions would be incorporated. And aside from that, I have no other comments on the application.
Okay.
Why does it need a building permit? It's already here.
Because it never received a building permit originally.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
I should have clarified that. I apologize. Yes.
Makes you wonder how that happened. That's a different discussion. You mentioned in your note, in your general comments, that there was some enforcement action by the town. Could you share what that is?
Yes, there were several letters issued by the Planning and Development Department relative to the cooler requiring that a building permit be submitted. And that action was never completed. The Planning and Development Department never issued a permit.
So that wasn't an enforcement action, it was simply a letter to the...
That's considered an enforcement action.
I see. Interesting. Thank you.
And so they're basically dealing with that action now.
Yeah, and
Correct.
that's water
That
under the
request.
bridge, and now they're doing it in the proper way, as if it were starting up from the beginning.
I mean, really, in the interest of these folks operating their business appropriately, we felt it was necessary for them to go through the proper channels. When they came in for a building permit, we looked at the site comprehensively and said, we think this needs to go through site plan review to reflect the changes since the last plan review in 1981. You'll see your plan dated. So we felt it was appropriate for them to go through the site plan review process.
Madam Chairman, I don't think that this process that we're in right now is going to lack anything from a lack of input from the TRC, given the very minor nature of two pre-existing additions to this structure, the walk-in cooler and a deck. So I'd be perfectly happy to vote to waive the requirement for TRC review.
Okay, would you put that in a motion
I'd
then?
make that motion right now. I move that this board waive requirement that this application go before TRC.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay. Then, having granted the waiver, the application is considered complete. And again, if somebody would be willing to make a motion that the application is complete.
So moved.
Thank you.
Seconded?
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, since we've determined that the application is complete, I can open the public hearing. So any member of the public that would like to comment on this application, please come on up and
Good
tell
evening.
us who you are.
My name is Kurt DeVilder, and I am the attorney representing the estate of Barbara S. Naramore and the Barbara S. Naramore Revocable Trust, as well as what was the Wolf Den LLC. I'm here to speak in support of the application, and I'll be brief. Essentially, I think that you have a good grasp of the situation. My client is in support of rectifying the situation that the late Ms. Naramore created when erecting this cooler without what would have been the proper approvals from the town. It, as you're aware, is an existing situation. It doesn't really have any negative impact, and it appears that we're going to have an excellent business taking the place of what was an excellent restaurant and a positive contributor to the downtown area. So we would ask that the board does approve this application tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone else want to comment?
Kathy Eaton, we are the owners of the building at 5060 North Main Street, and appreciate your consideration of this. We very much, obviously, we are very much in support of it. We're delighted to have this wonderful operation coming into, which we think will be an asset to everything in Main Street in Wolfeboro, and would appreciate your approval to correct this situation. We're glad to have a new site plan there. It's been a long time, not many changes in over 30 years, but we thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any questions, issues? Everybody okay if we just amend this to include the deck? It seems to make sense. Okay. Okay, do you have some conditions for us? Did you have? Yes, okay.
Conditions 1 through 4 are very similar to the prior application. The following plans as amended to today's approval are incorporated. This is the site plan for 50 North Main, and this is amended, and I should have the amended date on here. I apologize for that. Amended 28 March 2017. Condition 2, the applicant shall be responsible for the payment of all recording fees. The application as submitted does not satisfy all requirements for a building permit, and 4, all components of the application package and any requirements imposed by other agencies are part of this approval, unless otherwise clarified in some manner or superseded in full or in part. Most recent documentation in this notice herein shall generally be determining 1 through 4 conditions.
Okay, thank you. Everyone all set? Mm-hmm. Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing. In this case, we're bringing a property into conformance with the zoning requirements. I think that's a positive. Plus, it's nice to see all the activity on the property again, so that's also a positive for our downtown area. Anyone want to make a motion?
Sure.
The La Boca application?
Madam Chairman, I move that this board approve case number 2017-17, tax map 217-115, applicant La Boca LLC, for a site plan review as amended with conditions 1 through 4 as stated in the planner review as amended.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great. Thank you very much, folks.
Good job. No more lugging 36 pounds of butter.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
So nice.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment. If anyone would like to address the planning board on any issue, now is the time to do that.
Packed house.
Okay. Okay, I'll go on to the next issue. And that's the appointment of an alternate for a one-year term. Thomas Brown, that you? Yes, sure, come on up, and why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
And I will say for transparency too, Tom is a former colleague of mine at my former employer, so excited.
Oh,
Pressure.
okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Thomas Brown. I'm here because I expressed interest in being an alternate member for the planning board for 1 year. A little about myself. As Matt said, we worked for Stratford Regional Planning for 2 years together. I was a data management specialist. Now I work in town in Wolfeboro for a landscaping company, actually. Had to be outdoors, but still have that planning in me, so here I am, hoping to help the community and get involved.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. And we did forward your letter to all the planning board members. So.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for stepping up. And you came just in the nick of time because we're going to be starting our master plan. So.
I think we should sign him up before he gets away.
Yes, we need to sign him up.
I'm in the barn.
Well, how about, would somebody like to make a motion to appoint Tom as an alternate?
I move that we appoint Thomas Brown as an alternate to the planning board.
I second that.
For a one-year term,
For a
I guess.
one-year term.
This says. Okay, all right. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so you'll be getting a letter from the clerk, I guess, from Pat Waterman.
Yes.
And then you just need to be sworn in, okay, down in the clerk's office. Everything is very simple here. Yeah. Okay, and we look forward to you attending. And you're going to be getting a packet for each meeting. Okay.
I hear that you're an IT person? I would-
So Tom was critical in our transportation functions as a metropolitan planning organization. So we worked with DOT funding and local transportation projects. Those were part of the 10-year plan, that sort of thing. And Tom was the person who handled all of our transportation data when it came to the traffic counts that we use on a regular basis for traffic impact analyses, building permit data collection, other asset data collection. So he was a data guy through and through, but also really important to transportation planning as well. So
Bet you Tom would be a great addition to the master plan infrastructure team, don't you think?
there's going to be fighting for folks, isn't there, between committees? No.
Okay, all right, well, that's great.
I want to talk to them.
Do we have
Okay.
any other alternates?
Yes, Dave Alessandroni.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you work for? Oh, okay.
Works for him?
Be an interesting dynamic.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes. Okay, moving on to our work session items, the wayfinding signs. Matt, you want to give everybody an update?
I will give everyone an update. So the Wayfinding Sign Committee met on May 17th to review the existing, I'm going to refer to them as pilot signs that were downstairs. There were a few recommendations made for some changes. We discussed the placement of the signs, and we also discussed the timing of putting those signs out. Since that meeting, I have met with Terry Harriman, who's working on doing our sign design. She's working on making some adjustments to those, and we plan to have those back within the next week or so. Beyond that, the Public Works Department will be helping us to put the signs out over the next 2 weeks or so, and you should see them. And we've added some language to the bottom of the signs that says if you see any things that don't make sense, any locations that need to be changed, please let us know. Or if you just have general questions about the pilot wayfinding sign program, feel free to call the Planning and Development Department. So those should be out in 6 locations, I believe, around town. So hopefully you hear good things about them.
And there will be an article in the Granite State News encouraging people to forward their comments to us.
And that was going to be my question. How do we, so a lot of effort's gone into this and a lot of time, and it is what it is. It's going to go out there. But how do we keep that question percolating in people's minds to give us feedback, and how do we do that? I think one-shot article, I don't know.
No, there's going to be a little sign on the bottom of each one of them.
So the intent, I think, is to collect public input on these for the next 3 to 4 months, really the summer season. How?
How?
Well, we're putting our phone number on there. We had considered other, I know that you might think that's antiquated, but we felt that that was the best way to handle it. So we'll be having our phone number on there. They're welcome to call the Planning and Development Department with any questions, concerns, or comments. Beyond that, we will be doing presentations, I anticipate, at the Board of Selectmen after the project is sort of not wrapped up, but towards the end of the summer season on where we're at with that. And I think we'd solicit public comment at that point as well. And then beyond that, I think we'll be working to create a more permanent solution with these signs. But I think we'll be collecting input really on a rolling basis for the next 9 months.
Now, there's a couple of Facebook sites out there. You know you're from Wolfeboro. If is one. It's pretty actively visited by people. A lot of commentary on that. Mostly for people who want to post up photographs and images about our past. So there's a place, and there's a couple of other sites that maybe I'm just giving you suggestions. You do whatever you want. Maybe we drop some thoughts on a couple of Facebook sites, because there are some people out there who are pretty active in this. You might catch some thoughts from them.
Yeah, I think
Telling somebody to call a number, I mean, the likelihood that someone's going to stop right in the middle of Cotton Valley Trail and go, let me dial a number, that is zero. That's not going to happen. But I think if, we're sitting at home at night, we're playing on our laptop or whatever, and we visit a website, we might be interested in responding that way. Just a thought.
Well, that is a good idea, excuse me, but just putting them on the town website also. Go ahead.
Is there any way to just go to the town website and make comment?
Right.
We do have that ability. We had considered written comment or people sending me emails, which I feel similar about emails. That wouldn't be very effective. We could have a form online to collect input. I'm not sure how effective that would be to expect people to write comments, but I could certainly look into it.
Ask. See if you can do it on Facebook. A lot of people in town use Facebook. Thousands of people use Facebook. Wolfeboro the Wolfeboro, you're from Wolfeboro site has about 1,000 followers right now.
Right. And not to. I know I always tend to throw negatives in here.
Unless you have a positive.
We need to have a Facebook account to do that. We need to control. I mean, we don't want to have a completely open conversation. I mean, I'm just saying, if we begin to post this to some of those sites, I think we want to be sure that there's not misinformation being spread about what we're doing. I don't think that would be an issue, really, but I think it just comes with a certain amount of moderation, Paul. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Just a suggestion. Whatever you think is better, do it.
Well, can we at least look into the Facebook and the town website?
It may evolve anyway.
Right.
People may talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
among
Yes.
themselves.
And you may end up finding that there become letters to the editor of the Granite State, and that will keep the conversation going.
Yeah. Do agree, though, with what Paul is saying. I mean, Facebook would be a nice, accessible venue for folks to provide comments. So I guess maybe we should think about how to do that.
Well, we're also going to be having a public session,
Right.
and once we get the idea more.
Yeah, it would be nice to have sort of a non-traditional engagement method, though, and I'm not sure what the right one is for this project, but I think it's worth looking into.
You make, instead of using the word method, you put an S at the end of it. I think you want to touch people in the ways in which they want to be touched. They want to communicate. And I agree with you. You're going to get some folks that are going to be just madder than all gajipers about the fact that we're changing the signs and it's not right and that this isn't what we're all about. You're going to get that.
Yep.
You're also going to get some folks maybe who aren't going to say that. And I think that having a lot of input is always a good thing to do. And I'm not. Maybe you have more experience here, but I'm not into the controlling and the monitoring. I'm not into that stuff. I'm just let people communicate, and then we'll decide how we can deal with that information.
Although it is true that misinformation just spirals out of control sometimes.
Possibly right.
Yeah, I want to correct what I said, and I shouldn't have used that word. Control is not the right word. I just want to ensure that the feedback is productive. That's all. That's all my goal is. And I agree that we can sift through what we get,
Okay.
but I'd like to just ensure that we have a good handle on what the public faces we have on social media if we choose to do that. So I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I just want to be careful.
One thing, it might be good to have sort of a preemptive post on the Wolfeboro Facebook site so that the facts from our point of view are the first things that people see. Right.
Yeah.
And then people will go from there.
The town Facebook website is not in good shape, so we would need to do some work on that before we do that, but that might be worth putting some time into.
But it does seem like the town website has talked about the special election. It seems like we could put something saying, watch for the,
Oh, you mean on the front of the website?
yeah,
Yeah, I post those alerts. I can post one for this, so,
okay.
yeah, I can do
Well,
that.
anyway, it's some thoughts. But I agree, we need to get it out there, make it easy for people to comment.
Okay.
Okay, rules of procedure.
This would constitute the first reading of the rules of procedure, and the intent is to vote on these at the next meeting. And I will say, our new alternate member was actually confused by our existing rules of procedure because they said the Wolfeboro Public Library for the location of the meetings. That was sort of interesting. So what I'm going to do, rather than reading all of the changes, I'm going to try to select them as we go along. And please let me know if I miss any, because I have a black and white copy in front of me, so perhaps you're keeping better track than I am. But on page 1, item number 3 under members, I'll just read item number 3. Up to 3 alternate members, I'm reading it as amended. Up to 3 alternate members may be appointed as provided for by the local legislative body pursuant to RSA 673-6 to serve when a regular member of the board is unable to fulfill his or her responsibilities. Alternates are encouraged to attend all meetings. That will be the new item number 3 under members.
Makes sense.
Any questions on that?
And cross out all of
And cross out, and I'll read the cross out too. And participate in discussions at all work sessions. Alternates shall participate in public hearings when appointed by the chairman. Alternates, once seated to hear an application as a voting member, shall continue serving as a voting member of the board on said application until such time final action is taken on the application.
Oh, that was ambiguous.
Okay, and that's the reason for removing it, is because it's ambiguous, right?
Well, my only concern now, actually, after reading that,
I thought that was sort of statutory. They do
Yeah,
stay
right.
until that topic is done.
right, my concern is actually more about the deliberations.
Yeah, we have it covered later on in number 4, I think.
Right, but that language says they shall not participate in deliberation and
Yeah,
shall not.
You didn't change that.
So is the board comfortable with alternates not participating in deliberation?
We discussed that the last go-around on the 16th of May.
Yeah.
We said they could.
We said they could.
You picked up the language that was changed on May 16 without changing it. That's the problem.
Okay, so can we correct that when we get to it?
Yeah.
Is everyone comfortable with that? My apologies on that.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
More input.
Right.
Yeah, of
right,
course.
Yes. Yep. But we agree that item number 3 is being changed as I just read it. Okay. Item number 1 under meetings is being changed to read, regular meetings shall be held at 7 p.m. in the meeting room at a designated meeting place rather than the Wolfeboro Public Library. On the first Tuesday of each month, other meetings may be held on the call of the chairman. Just adding the word "the" in that third line. Everyone comfortable?
Okay,
Under item number 4, alternates on page 2.
I have a question on that one. In some ways, it says the chairman or vice chairman. Oh, it's in the absence of the chairman, fine.
Item number 4, alternates. This is language being added. Prior to the start of a public hearing, the chairperson of the board shall announce which, if any, is to be appointed to sit as a voting member in place of a regular member. It's an addition. The removal is alternates shall participate in public hearings when appointed by the chairman. Everyone comfortable? Mm-hmm. Okay. Next paragraph under alternates. An alternate may participate in the review, question, and comment on an application, but unless appointed by the chairperson to sit as a voting member, shall not participate in deliberation. So we're gonna change this to,
Shall not vote, just right to not vote, yeah.
give me 1 second to review this. So we want alternates to participate in deliberations, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But not vote.
An appointed alternate may participate in the review, question, and comment on an application, and shall participate in the deliberation and shall vote on the application, or something to that effect.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, that was,
Alternates not appointed to sit during a public hearing. Wait a second. Alternates prior to the start of the public hearing. Okay. Alternates one seated to hear an application, serving the voting members and so time is fine. Alternates not appointed to sit as during a public hearing. Alternates may participate in the review, question, and comment on an application, and may participate in the deliberation, but shall not vote on the application.
So wasn't that covered in what we just did?
No,
No.
we did alternates appointed, now we're doing alternates not appointed.
okay, Mike, can I
Right.
make a slight amendment?
This is,
But the key here is that an alternate participates in conversations, makes no motions, does not vote.
right,
Right,
that's all we're trying to do.
yes.
So, an alternate may participate in the review, question, comment, and deliberation on an application, but shall not vote on the application unless otherwise appointed by the chair.
Unless appointed by the chair.
Unless appointed by the chair.
No, actually, don't. Delete not appointed by the chair. Shall not vote on the application, period, because we're
Period.
talking about alternates not appointed.
Not appointed, yeah, we've already said that in the first
Okay.
sentence.
So, one more time, just to make sure I have this. An alternate may participate in the review, question, comment, and deliberation on an application, but shall not vote on the application.
Mhm. And you could strike the first application or strike the second one if you want, just to make it sound better.
Okay.
Prior to any vote on an application, the chairman shall announce who is voting on the application.
I think that's fine still. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes,
So
Order of,
This is not going to count as a reading,
yes, it will, I think.
right? We came into this without final wording.
well, that's okay.
I think that's okay.
Okay.
We're not
Let's
changing,
proceed as if this is the first reading. I will make sure to check, though.
we're not changing the intent.
Well, yes, we are. This
changing
clearly
the language,
says,
yeah.
this clearly says that there shall be no deliberation by alternates.
Oh, yes,
So I
okay.
think-
No, yeah, okay, so,
Yeah, and a reading should be a reading of a finished document, not
Right.
a work in progress. I don't really think we
So-
should call this a reading.
Okay, well, we will probably read at the work session then.
that's okay. It's a publicly noticed meeting, so we'll do it
We'll vote at the work session, so we're still on schedule.
the next meeting in June and the first one in July, and then we will have,
Makes no motions.
right.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. Number
If you
5,
make no motions, you just can't vote. And can't vote, or whatever,
And
whatever
can't
the right words are.
Otherwise, you do everything else.
nope, all right. We're good, I think. 5, order of business. The order of business for regular meetings shall generally, that's an addition, be as follows. A, introduction of board members by the chair. B, public hearings. C, public comments. D, minutes of the previous meeting. E, communications and miscellaneous. F, unfinished business. G, new business. And H, adjournment. Any issues?
What's the difference between unfinished business and a bunch of other stuff, like applications?
Between unfinished business
What
and
is unfinished business?
unfinished business is, I would say, call it work session content that was sort of continued from the past.
Continuations of things?
Wayfinding sign.
Continuations of work session items only, though, not continuation of public hearings or applications.
Okay.
Only really discussion or
Discussion.
other action. It could be other action items too, like the rules of procedure, perhaps. Okay.
Okay.
This is a really minor adjustment, under applications and decisions, 1A, revising this to say, all applications for hearings before the board shall be made on forms provided by the Planning and Development Office. I don't even think that needs to be made, but,
How about changing number 7 to number 6 if you want to be absolutely perfect?
oh goodness, yes,
Well,
we
you
are
know,
changing number
this is a
7.
reading, isn't it?
It's not now.
Well, then, sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up.
Changing number 7 to number 6, the non-public session item. Item B, under applications and decisions, we are capitalizing the O in ordinance.
And the Z in
There we
zoning.
go.
It's a critical change being made there.
There you go.
Goodness, that's happening.
You know, it's hard to sleep at night with things like this hanging.
I agree. Item E, under applications/decisions, the planner review of all submitted applications shall generally be available. That is not my amendment, I have to tell you. But we can include that one.
Beat you up on that, did she?
I don't even know what that is. In item F, rules of procedure is capitalized now.
Right.
Page 4. Zoning ordinance is again being capitalized. And one additional change here that I want to add under public meeting and hearing process, item J, I would like to replace with, so actually we couldn't have a reading tonight anyway, I would like to replace with a 5-minute time limit will be placed on all speakers except project presenters.
Except project.
Presenters. 5-minute time limit will be placed on all speakers except project presenters.
You're here.
Is that okay? Is that all right with everyone?
It's a parliamentary process.
Yes.
He was under 3 minutes on the upside down tree. Come on, give the guy a break. He's
If you
right here
can't
in the
say
room.
it in 5 minutes, you should sit down.
Well, yeah, but the trouble is, doesn't that sound a little bit like prior restraint?
What? A 5-minute time
An
limit?
actual 5-minute time limit?
I think, no, it gives a reason for somebody to say, now, you're at 6 minutes, you know, you're well over the time. I mean, generally, it gives a guideline to what we're expecting.
Yeah.
Do we have a problem we need to fix, or are we just putting this in here?
I think we have a problem we need to fix.
I mean,
What's the problem we're
I
trying to
think-
fix?
I think we can
Windy and circular.
point to the people that this might be applied to. That's not too hard, but they're
we're not gonna
not
do
often
that.
here, and usually they're amenable to instruction from the chair.
What happens if the word generally limited to 5 minutes put in there?
Yeah, I'm okay with the generally. I think our chairman is pretty darn good at towing the line when the line needs to be towed.
Yeah, I agree.
Generally is a.
Generally
yeah,
speaking.
Generally is a good word.
Okay.
I think, you know, doing this, 5 minutes and a klaxon horn goes off is not a good idea. I think we should be generally in the 5-minute range.
So suggest some language.
Yeah, be more suggestive than more,
You suggest some language.
we use the word generally.
Generally.
Where?
Well, my
Such
writing was
as-
the same as yours, so I don't know.
Chairman, with the approval of
We
the
need to
board,
be
may
more-
generally place reasonable time limits?
Prescriptive.
No, what was Matt
No.
saying?
No, I would just
Replace-
put a 5, Generally, a 5-minute time limit will be placed on all speakers except project, and I'm going to change that to representative, actually.
Yeah.
Representatives. So generally, it's our new favorite word.
You got to start in the middle of the sentence and add generally into it after it.
Yeah, I like the may place reasonable time
Yeah,
limits,
I-
and then
I-
have a suggestion. That's
I just see our freedoms getting whittled away further and further
Yeah.
and further here.
Well, what if we allow them to speak again when everybody else has gotten a chance to speak? You know, it's at a time, so
Well,
that
they
if
would have that right anyway. They could always come back for a second bite if they asked the chair's permission.
the benefit of limiting people who are long-winded is that other people in the room will definitely get a chance to speak.
I know what you're saying, and it's a good, it's a good reason, it's a good thing to fix, but there are very few of us who are wordy like that. We know already who they are. We come here with an extra bottle of water prepared for them showing up. I would prefer not to have a time limit of 5 minutes. It makes it seem as if makes us seem, in my mind, dictatorial to the public.
No, I think we're doing it for the opposite reason, so that everybody gets a fair chance of speaking, not one person showboating.
We would always listen to
I think
everybody.
during deliberation, I think it should apply to us too.
I don't think any of us, I don't think I've ever heard anybody here
Well,
speak for more than
And
5
that's
minutes.
reasonable.
Well, I don't want to belabor the issue. You have my objections.
I don't like to, and I disagree with you, Vaughn, I don't like to impose restrictions when none are required. I think we should keep it clear that crispness is requested. If it wanders, we do have a
Yeah.
steel toe shoe in the chairperson.
And she has roped them in the
So
past.
how about this? How about we leave J as it was, and then
Yeah.
at the end of speakers, comma, 5 minutes is recommended.
Suggested.
Yeah, suggested is fine. Yeah,
5
Yeah.
minutes is suggested.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Suggested.
right.
A 5-minute limit is
5
suggested.
limit
Yeah.
is
Right.
suggested.
At the end, but keep that sign,
Other
that,
than the
So
percentage.
just so that we can say what is reasonable.
Okay, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
like a velvet fist in a velvet glove. Or something like that.
okay, Matt, is that okay?
Yes.
Got
that's fine.
that? Okay, then we,
Board, are we?
No,
Thank you. Good man.
I want to leave here alive, it's,
okay, number 7.
that is changing from number 8 to number 7, critical. And then language was added here at the end. A tie vote on any motion will cause the motion to fail. Under records, records of the board shall be kept by staff of the Planning and Development Office.
Okay,
Number three, recordings of meetings. That content is being removed there. That the language being removed is all meetings shall be recorded, and the tape will be available for public use until the minutes of said meeting have been filed with the town clerk. Thereafter, tapes of the meeting shall be destroyed.
and-
In this world, you can't ever destroy.
Remember, our meetings are recorded now. Thank you, Peter. So,
We want to put a 30 or a 40-day, 45-day limit on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And then on the top of page 6, the rules of procedure, rules and procedure being capitalized. Nothing more on page 6. Then on page 7, the absence of the chairman for any reason, the elected vice chairman shall act in her/his place.
That's very PC.
And
okay,
obviously, the date will change on the bottom of all of these sheets, should these be adopted.
Was waiting for that.
all right.
Good job.
Everybody okay with these? You're going to hear about them 2 more times, okay?
Madam Chairman, can I just?
We'll have an accelerated presentation next
Are we
time.
going to have to
I
reading
think it should-
all the ones that were mentioned, or just the ones that were the
No,
changes?
I don't think we need to read them again, do we? We're going to have to, well, we will, but we'll do it quickly.
You'll do it quickly.
We'll do it,
Yes,
we've
okay.
agreed on content.
And we have a 5-minute limit now, so,
What, can I go above 5 minutes?
no, you're not presenting.
Oh, yeah, we've been
Some of the
meaning to
stuff you
tell you.
write, absolutely, you can go as long as you want, whether we listen to you or not.
Okay,
Madam Chairman, can I just add just a little more texture to the wayfinding signs?
you mean, well, can we're finished with this,
I thought we
everybody?
were, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're happy.
Oh, I'm fine.
And, okay, we'll go through them 2 more times and then, okay, back to the
A little
wayfindings.
more texture for the wayfinding signs. And again, there's overlap here, okay?
Okay,
So I just, while we were doing this, I looked at the You Know You're From Wolfeboro If site has 1,700 people who follow it. Now, whether they follow it regularly or not, we
no,
don't.
they follow it regularly.
I know, I'm on it, you're on it, you and I are on it, right? The Wolfeboro Police Department
Oh, I know.
has 2,800 people who follow it regularly. Parks and Recreation Facebook page has 1,507 people who follow it. Electric Department has 472 people. The Chamber of Commerce has 1,171 people. And again, there's probably duplication across these things. Of course. Because what people are doing is they're just moving around in these little ecosystems looking for relevant current information. And there is a Google Analytics account on the town website. I used to have until you changed your hosting provider, I used to be able to tell you how many people came into the town, but you can pull your Google Analytics traffic on that. It was just, this could be a place where you might want to deposit information.
Sure.
Hey, the wayfinding signs are out there, all we want you to do is comment on them.
Yeah.
There's a number on the wayfinding signs.
And I think we need to do that. To get any stuff that we're working on really should be out there on the town website. It's supposed to be a great website. Let's use it.
Well, I didn't even use
seriously.
the
No, I know, I agree.
I didn't even use the town of Wolfeboro website. These are only Facebook pages from Parks and Rec and Chamber of Commerce and other people. So you could
okay.
even do a town website, but, just put it out there. What happens?
Okay,
So,
thank you.
thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, lodging forum follow-up.
Yes.
Who wrote this?
Mike Hodder did, and it really should have had his name on it. It came as an
I
attachment.
sent it as an email to Kathy.
An email attachment, and I'm sorry that it didn't.
I didn't present it as a formal presentation to the planning board, but I'll take responsibility for its content.
Let me explain quickly what happened.
Mike sent it to me, and anytime I get something like that, I love to share things. And so I just wanted everybody to.
Don't send anything to Kathy that you don't want to show up at the
Yeah.
board.
So,
Right, sorry.
Leanne was mixed into the email chain, and what makes me happy is that Leanne tends to err towards including things in the packet
Right.
rather than not, so she made the decision to include it in the packet.
Okay.
So that's how it got in there, so I,
But
I beat her.
sorry for the
Yes, beat her
lack of the date and the email had that information, but not this document. So I know you're dying to say something.
With full disclosure, I mentioned to Vaughn that I was thrilled that you took a position at our last meeting to really start to have a conversation about how we can help the existing lodge owners and their businesses from a planning, zoning, whatever the right words are. I mentioned that to Vaughn when I saw her last week. I think we should put that on the work plan. I think that's world-class stuff. That's the right thing to do. And thank you, Mike, for writing this. I just wanted to know for author's purposes. I took the liberty, and I'd like to pass this out to the board, I took the liberty of making a copy of the 2007 Economic Development Plan, which was modified in 2011. And I'd just like to share this with the board because it provides context as to what master plan says about how economic development should be approached, so that when we have the conversation about these hotels and other things, we can use this kind of as background information in our minds. Help us. I don't think people need to read it now, but this is the 2007 Master Plan Economic Development section. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we will be using these existing chapters as sort of the, kind of the background for going forward.
Cool.
So on the lodging forum, I do have a few open conversations with existing owners and operators about projects that are going on. So I find that encouraging, and it'll be a good opportunity to interface with them, find out about what they might be working on and how the zoning ordinance can either assist them or maybe an object or maybe should be changed in the future to help them do the projects they're looking at doing.
Are they associating? Do you get a sense they're trying to associate with each other?
Not based on the conversations I've had with them about specific projects, no, but I'm not surprised that has not come up. But I also have not asked them in the context of their project whether or not they're talking to other operators about it.
A friend at the Lake Motel, the reason I asked, a friend at the Lake Motel offered, in yesteryear, whenever that was, that if one place was filled, they'd pick up the phone and ring-a-ling-a-ling to another person. And I'm just wondering if that association, that little neural network could get built again, and maybe, and I don't know whether the town shouldn't involve itself other than just ask, if you're doing it.
Yeah,
I think we should get an old-fashioned party line.
Yeah.
We have one lady.
Hoot and
at
holler
the-
circuit. No, Wall Street uses hoot and holler circuit.
That would
maybe
be
before
lovely.
my time.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
He doesn't remember dial phones.
No.
Well, it was kind of interesting at that lodging forum, the woman that purchased the property over in Center Street that's having the vineyard
Yes.
said that her B&B really isn't being used. It's open, but, so, there are B&Bs also that really need to be in this loop. Okay, anything else on the?
One of the things I'd say about your issues raised by attendees is that most of these are things in some ways that should be dealt with by the Chamber of Commerce.
Right. I think the challenge with the chamber is if you're not a member.
Right. Essentially maintain calendar of special events, that's not particularly our business. Some of the other things are, but.
No, this document wasn't intended as a worksheet for the planning board to consider. It's just my impressions of what came out of the lodging forum, and then my impressions of where did what I believe to be a myth of tourism leakage come from, and what evidence was there for tourism leakage, and there appears not to be any evidence for tourism leakage other than an anecdotal evidence for tourism leakage. It's not referred to in the economic development plan. It's not referred to anywhere other than in the study, Spurrier study, where it is supported by a feeling of the study writers, the authors of the study. There's no actual statistics, documentation, no factual evidence presented for tourism leakage in that study either. I simply say we have the feeling that. And we heard nothing from the lodging representatives who were here that night that they felt there was tourism leakage. They were so full that they couldn't find any beds in Wolfeboro, and people were going to Tuftonboro or Meredith. In fact, they were saying, as we heard from the Wolfeboro Inn, 55%, and they had a record year.
Right.
So it clearly is not an undersupply of bed space in this town. There's some other issue other than that.
I think that the forum touched on some of those. It's an activity issue. I think we've all, some of us have different tenures in our town. I personally am seeing a demonstrable diminution of activity in our town, winter activity, first night, things of that nature. I think there's and that caused me to go back to the master plan which really addressed the need to four-season our town. And maybe not necessarily for tourism, but, you know, we need more thinking about what made our town go. And that's one of the reasons I like this, you know, you're from Wolfeboro if. By the way, it's kind of one of the reasons I like reading Dave Bauer's stuff. What made this town go? And there's got to be a 21st century model of what made this town go that we can copy into today's world in some way, somehow. And I worried, and my only worry about, you know, zoning is anytime we do zoning, we are changing business and property values when we do zoning of this nature. And I worry that we got to be really careful about how we do that.
Well, that's one of our requirements, that we take that into account.
I agree. That's why I you know, this we just want to deregulate on spec is not something that I get signed up for, you know, kind of.
Yeah, and number two in that list of issues raised by is a zoning issue, which this board can address.
Yeah.
The fact that many of the lodging facilities are in districts where they're not allowed permitted uses.
Right.
They're there for various other reasons, and they are constrained by the requirements of the zones that they're in.
We landlocked them.
Well, they become landlocked, not because we've done it, but because this board, in all of its iterations in the past, has created zones which are not amenable to some of the buildings that are there currently. So we need to find some way of making their current situation easier for them to do business in without at the same time doing damage to the people who are in the residential zone already.
And Matt, I'll shut up after this. The reason I asked about are they associating, I really came away from that meeting feeling that we could begin on a group-by-group basis. We could at least begin a conversation. Get people to converse with each other, get them to talk about each other. And if they choose not to, it's up to them. But we've celebrated this as the vitality of our town, which is our lodging, our appeal, the lake. And if we could get them telling us more and more and more about what should be done, and telling the chamber more, and telling the development committee more, that would be goodness. That's my only point.
Well, we did at our last meeting say that we wanted to follow up with the lodging people.
Yep.
And so I think we need to, in the next couple meetings, decide what we want to, how we want to,
For you.
you know, make some changes, if we do, if we don't. Also, I think we need to make a decision about the cap. Are we going to say, no, the 50-room limit stays in, or do we want to relook at that? We're looking at architectural standards, so, I mean, there are some issues that are kind of coming together here, and I think we have somewhat of an obligation to get back to people so that they don't feel as if they wasted an evening coming here to express their thoughts.
One thing I didn't hear at the lodging forum was anybody say that we should remove the 50-room limit. Yep. Not one.
That's another one of the points I would hope the board had noticed in this little analysis, and I'm not suggesting that it's full of gems of wisdom either, but nobody said they want that 50 cap removed because they're pressing up against that ceiling, and they can't do business because. And I think that if it were up to me, I would vote not to remove that 50 limit cap. It doesn't appear to be, as Paul always says, a problem needing fixing. We don't have a problem there.
And it's not as if we can't. I mean, if a situation presents itself, there are mechanisms. There's a method. I would like to focus our time and our energies on helping existing business owners be successful. And if someone wants to come and put a 500-room hotel in our town, we'll deal with that.
Send them to the ZBA.
We'll deal with it.
Right, and I really think that that's what the EDC focused on with their business retention, was let's help these existing businesses. Well, let's do it then.
Yeah, I think putting wheels on the ideas is, talking in future tense of all the things we're going to do in the future doesn't make me feel good. Talking about goals we set and programs we want to implement, how we're going to track results is what I think would make me feel good. That's why I like this planning board, because we work on current stuff.
Yeah, work on the zoning constrictions that these people are complaining about. That's something we can touch.
So Kathy, do you want us
Not
to
remove the
discuss and
50 room
move on the
limit.
50-bed limit at some point?
Yes, I think we should.
Why can't we do that now?
I would like to
Well,
put that on
well,
the,
let's-
sorry, Kathy. I didn't
Yeah.
mean
It
to
should be an
interrupt.
agenda item so people can come and
Let's
listen
do
to
it in the context of other things that
No, I agree.
we're going to do.
I don't want to do it tonight. I don't want to do it tonight.
I would like to
I
put
just
it,
want to know what's holding us back, that's all.
Well, I think we want to do a number of things. I mean, it's.
I would like to put it as an agenda item on a work session, specifically a discussion of the cap in the interest of notifying the public that
Yeah.
a decision is going to be made. And Kathy and I had discussed potentially putting that on the June work session agenda, so the next meeting.
Right, but then if it's on the agenda, there'll be some no's. But, I think we have to remember that at that lodging forum, the lodging people were the vocal ones, but there were a lot of other citizens that came, and they were quiet, and they were listening. I kind of have a feeling many of them probably would not like to see us remove the cap. So when we talk about the forum, I sort of think of those folks there also. I mean, we're going to have a public meeting on this issue, I think, or whatever issues we decide. And at that point in time, everybody will come together, the lodging forum people, the citizens, and
Yeah. Give everybody a chance to talk at the.
yes,
I
right.
think if it's important, I think I said it's in the minutes. I think, and I agree, we'll have an agenda item to do it in a work session. If it's important, it becomes a warrant article. Let somebody sponsor a warrant article and move it from that point forward. And it's the people of the town vote.
Right.
Well, they don't, you mean on the 50-room cap?
Pardon?
On anything, on any issue.
On issue, yeah, but not the 50-room cap. That's not going to warrant. You don't want that to happen, do you?
It's not.
Right.
Unless we make a
Unless we
change.
change
Yeah,
it, right,
unless we make a change. But
And
if
one
we-
thing I'd like the board to
if we
consider.
don't, it doesn't go to,
Right.
Sorry, Mike. One thing I'd like the board to consider is possibly a special exception for going above the cap, rather than the requirement for a variance. Just something to consider.
What information would you have to support that?
It's not really information that's necessary to support that. It's simply a change in the ordinance that we can make, in the zoning ordinance, that would make the process less restrictive. That's
Well,
all.
and if you think about the zoning, the 5 points that you have to clear, what does that actually have to do with 50 bedrooms? Because of the way a certain parcel of land is situated, I mean, that's a kind of awkward argument to even make.
well, we've always, on the ZBA, relied on the planning board site plan review to clean up any mess or little bits that we were not familiar with or had no jurisdiction over. So that's why I suggested a variance. Special exception brings in the expertise of the board, which is good and important, but I'm just concerned that is it easier to go the special exception route? Or is it easier to go the variance route,
Well,
get a building of that size in?
I wasn't, the special exception criteria usually deal with traffic, noise, issues that are
More public health, safety, and welfare related, I think,
Yeah,
more
then
clearly.
they don't come into ZBA. Ideally, I'd like to see a variance plus a special exception. Make 2 hurdles, but I don't think that's probably legal.
Well, that sounds a little restrictive.
But that's not legal. Of the 2 procedures, special exception gets the deeper scrutiny because there's more members, for one thing, and we have additional expertise on this board that doesn't exist on the ZBA. And the ZBA's criteria don't really address health, safety, and public welfare issues, whereas special exception criteria do.
Yeah.
What is it that could be inherent in the land that would make it be a relief from 50 rooms? I mean, I don't even know how that works.
You mean,
The zoning,
yeah,
ZBA.
right.
I mean, how can you get relief from 50 rooms because my parcel is shaped like a Z, whatever?
It would be very difficult to get a variance
Yeah.
for the 50 cap.
Right,
Yeah, but
yeah.
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. There are members of the ZBA can find special conditions of property in flat pieces of land. It's not hard to argue. If the project seems like a good one, there are ways of finding answers to the questions that will allow the variance to go through.
So I'd like to move this
Called
conversation
gold
to the next
seeking.
meeting,
Yeah.
but I shouldn't have brought up the special exception question. I just wanted to put it out there for consideration.
But remember if we were talking about a special exception or something, that would be for our only prohibited or permitted hotels are in the commercial zones. So we wouldn't be talking about the non-conforming places like L&A Motel.
Right.
That's kind of a separate issue that we would need separate zoning standards for that type of
I
facility.
should,
Would go to variance.
again, the way I get back to this is I think we're dealing with an issue on a speculation. And so when I look at that, I go, those are important. We have had conversations about zoning around speculation. We have nothing underneath that. There's no body here of credible data. And honestly, I've said this before, I have the study. I had the study before you guys had it. I had a team of people look at this. We couldn't make the numbers work. So I recused myself at some point during these proceedings. I'd like us to focus on how do we help gray shingles? How do we help the
Yeah,
folks at
right.
the top of the hill? How do we deal with, we didn't do anything bad, and I hope you didn't think we did. I mean, over years, the way we created zones, we were done all for good purpose. They were done for the public benefit. People benefited from this. But, there's always a little consequential damage that happens. We constrict people. I'd like us to focus on the existing folks.
I think we
Make
just
their
got,
lives a little easier without ticking off everybody in the town, with noise and all those other things. We do that, then I'll bet you a couple of years from now, someone's going to come to us and say, we're busting at the seams, right? We got to deal with the 50 thing.
I agree with you. I think we just got sidetracked in this particular conversation on the 50-room
Yeah.
cap.
All right.
But I think that the focus of this board is really to provide some kind of zoning relief through ordinance revision or new ordinance proposal for the lodging facilities that you already have here in town.
Right, the reason it came up is because it is kind of a pending issue in the minds of some folks.
And just bringing another point, the architectural standards that are going to go into site plan review, I think are absolutely key to the protection of this town, more so than 50-room cap issues, because they are the ones that are going to drive whether or not a franchise hotel comes in here and feels comfortable with the architectural standards or not, and maybe goes somewhere else instead. I think if we we're going to look at where we should allocate our resources on these particular issues, it should be one, zoning relief for the guys who are in business currently, and two, architectural standards, what might be coming down the pike in the future, with application to all commercial structures.
I think there are a whole bunch of very kind of separate issues altogether here. There's 50 rooms, and there's architectural standards, and there's ZBA versus special. I mean, I just think that we ought to approach it where we are trying to help the current business owners first.
Absolutely. I agree.
Whatever way we
Well,
can.
no oceans.
Yeah.
next little thing.
Yes, we should leave the 50 where it is, and we should start working with these other people where we can put our efforts towards something that's going to move things forward, rather than continuing talking about the same thing we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks, even longer, by sending questions back and forth and having them adjusted. I mean, a lot of those questions never even came out into the forefront. We wasted so much other time on doing that stuff, it never even came to fruition. So we need to I think we need to let it be where it is, it's on the books, and go discuss the important stuff.
Okay, so to be discussed June 20th. We have Lone Wolf, that shouldn't take,
What's the issue with Lone Wolf? Is it a continuation?
oh, well,
No, this is a new Lone Wolf application. This is for the Lone Wolf Brew Pub.
Out there?
no, at the, do you remember where Rethreads was located?
Oh, sure.
They're going in there,
Awesome.
Really?
yeah. Anyway, so there'll be that, and then we can discuss this lodging, right?
Mentioning to Matt a few weeks ago, there was a piece on New Hampshire PBS about the nano brewing industry in our state, and I did not see Lone Wolf in there, but there were others around the Ossipee, Wolfeboro area, little nano brewers.
Sorry, folks.
And and what it's the culture that's building around that. I thought it was kind of
Yeah,
nice. It was
right,
nice to
yes.
see.
Oh, okay, can we quickly do the minutes? We have 3 sets. The May 2nd ones were, I mean, they were kind of short. That was for the site visit.
Just the site walk one.
Yes, any issues
Move to
with,
approve those.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Let's see, May 2nd, the regular minutes.
Move to approve?
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, and the 16th.
Seconded.
Second, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of May 16th minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. And then just one last item. Leanne had to listen to the tape in order to do the minutes for, I think it was May 2nd, and she said that she could clearly hear the side conversations and the various comments made and some whispering. She did say whispering, didn't she?
She did say whispering.
She said she could clearly hear that, which means that the folks that are watching at home have the benefit of those side comments. So I think we need to all keep that in mind during our meetings.
Well,
So-
I'm guilty of whispering, so I will try better not to whisper next time. I'm not sure.
I mean, all comments are supposed to be directed through
Yeah,
the chair.
yes, right, right, yes. All comments are for the benefit of all of us. Okay, all right.
And we did get a letter.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes, yes, a very nice letter from the Energy, thank you, Paul, from the Energy Committee. And so they're excited about moving ahead, which is great. Then you all got a copy of that. So.
Very nice.
Okay,
Move to adjourn?
all right. Motion has been made, seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right, folks. How about that?
So the story that I told you about me and the kids and the 13 kids live on the Main Street, it's the same thing about these restaurants. I mean, we were 13 kids, there was 6 or 7 of them that stayed in our town. I mean, we stayed in our town because Tinkers was able to do his carpeting business out of his garage. My brother was able to take care of my father's shop. I mean, these restaurants, they were able to do it because they were put in the area.